Welcome everybody to the Rotating Tap Podcast. We've got Steve Vanderploeg, Korey, David, and special guests. Maybe beer people talking comedy or comedians talking beer. Listen up everybody and we'll see what you will hear. I won't waste any more time cause it's going very fast. It's the Rotating Tap Podcast.
And it would be less than 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
People can really drink beers. Cool. Hello. Hi. Hell yeah. Welcome to the Rotating Tap Podcast. My name is Steve Vanderploeg.
I'm Korey David.
And we are here with Ratio Beerworks, Tristan and Jason. Say hello, gentlemen.
Howdy.
Hello.
Nice. There we go. Off to a great start. We know how to talk. Cool. So we're really excited to have you guys on. Obviously, you guys have been a big part of the comedy community here in Denver for a long time, so that's very important to us. One of the things that people like to say to us when they find out that we are comedians is right away they say, "Tell us a joke." So we're going to turn the tables on you guys and have you guys tell us a joke.
Give us your best.
I was saying, geez, you don't even warm up the crowd. You just start at a cold. You got to tell a joke.
Yeah,
out
man,
of nowhere.
this is how comedy works. Sometimes you just show up to a bar in the middle of Wyoming
Like,
and they
"Go,
didn't
say something funny.
Yeah, and they didn't know comedy was happening that night. Somebody just from the back of the room
And how well
yells,
does that normally go?
"Boo!"
Yeah, exactly.
Well, sometimes it works out great, but you're really playing comedy obstacle course from the get-go.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's the thing. You got to warm up the podcast. So tell us what you got.
You have a joke?
I don't know.
or
I'm trying to scroll through some. I'm mostly like a story type guy.
Anna, I have a joke from our graphic designer.
Go for
Anna.
it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So there's two whales sitting at a bar, and one whale says, "Ow, oh, ow." The other whale says, "Jesus, man, you're drunk." That's it. That was dumb.
I thought you were just going to be doing that for the entirety
Well,
of the podcast.
I think that's the other way you could take that
Yeah.
joke.
But what if every whale song is just they're hammered?
I know.
And they come
Yeah.
to the surface, and this is just them serenading everybody from the ocean depths.
We try to find meaning in the dolphins chatter and all that, and what if they're just drunk?
Yeah.
She was telling me a joke.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Tristan's up. Do you
Oh,
got
I
any
have
more-
warmed it up.
Any
I
more,
thought Jason already covered it.
any more
Yeah.
big whale humor? Did he steal your
Yeah.
joke?
Yes.
'Cause that's a big no-no in the
Yes.
industry.
Yeah, we're really into whale humor here at Ratio, so I need to get some fresh material about krill or something.
You sound pretty salty about
Whale
it.
of
I
a
don't
time.
know.
Whale's more seawater, not freshwater. So you're gonna-
I can't. Any freshwater whales?
yeah.
I think I'll tell a little bit of a funny story instead. You know,
All right,
Running
to
new
start
bits.
changing up the
Yeah,
rules
I'm
of the
gonna change
podcast.
rules.
Yeah.
Tristan's coming to an open mic
Look,
later.
I'll figure.
I know
intimidated.
podcasts, so I know how to do this. No,
I'm a marketing manager. You can't talk to me like that. I drive a Dodge Stratus.
that's right. I have many leather-bound books, so whatever I want to do. I think probably the funniest humor is stuff that comes from my parents, both because they're older and also because I'm first generation, so they moved here. So, but my dad one time saw that I was wearing like an old kind of like driver's cap, you know. He's like, "Oh, wearing the same kind of hat as JJ Cool," and I was like, "JJ Cool? What are you talking about?" He's like, "You know, that guy from NCIS." And I was like, LL Cool J? And so he was like, "Yeah, that guy." So I just thought it was hilarious that he was like JJ Cool.
JJ Cool.
It's probably a better name.
The Asian cover artist of
Yeah.
LL Cool J is
Exactly,
JJ Cool.
yes.
JJ
Wait,
Cool.
why am I thinking Ice-T? I thought Ice-T was on the drama show.
Oh, you mean T-Ice.
Ice?
I think you mean Vanilla Ice.
Wait, no, I'm serious. I thought Ice-T was like that Homicide show.
I think
Wasn't
he's
LL
on a
Cool?
different one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, every crime show, everybody knows.
Yeah.
A real crime show needs a rapper.
They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's
Yeah.
bring in a hip hop artist. to freshen
NYPD
things up.
Blue. What was
The others, all those others.
Yeah, exactly.
Jimmy Smits was the rapper of NYPD Blue.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Post Malone just got added to.
New season of FDNY. Hell yeah, cool. So in the comedy industry, we have what's called a Type 5, which is our best 5 minutes of material. But for you guys, what we just kind of want you to do is tell us a little bit about the background for Ratio and yourselves and how this all kind of came into fruition for you guys.
Yeah, just tell us about like your beer background and what you do at the brewery right now.
Yeah, just repeat what I say, Korey. That's good.
I will. Just wanted to make sure that.
Well, actually, no, it's good. If you want Ratio background or mine, but we'll do it 5. How I got to where Ratio is. So, we'll do the quick version. I actually grew up in Colorado, but then moved to Texas for a minute. Met my wife there. And then we moved to LA, where then I proceeded to, I was a chemical engineer in school, and then moved to Texas and LA, and then decided I'm going to go full-time touring with my band, punk rock band. So
did you
quite
meet
a
her on
swing.
a ranch or what?
Yeah, no, it was in the middle of Houston, so it was actually a massive city.
Okay.
It is funny, the breadth of what
picture.
Houston has, yes. No accents in Houston, very little. Right as you get outside the city, there's like a bunch of invisible
Texan
wall, and the accent comes flooding in. You go 5 miles out of the city.
Can you give us your best outside of Houston?
Howdy, y'all.
Howdy,
All
y'all.
right.
Not bad.
I just picture you driving out of the city and you're like talking to your kid, and then you're like, "Oh, Thurston, have a great day." Now down on the farm, you hit a certain.
Oh yeah,
point and
now
it
you
just
gotta watch out.
transitions.
I'm in a
Orange
punk rock
Texas.
band. Jesus. We tour the country.
Yeah,
That's the
probably a bit
yeehaw,
exaggerated.
the yeehaw boundary.
Yeah, and it goes more towards Dallas, and there's the more Louisiana side, as Houston's actually only about 100 miles from that, 60 miles from the border.
Yeah, not far. Okay.
So anyways, moved to LA, was playing music in school and punk rock, and decided to do that full time. So toured kind of the country and the world for 3 years full time and a lot of years part time from there. Did a lot of random part time jobs,
Yeah, we
trying
know
to
how that
not do
goes.
engineering or something of that ilk.
Yeah.
And then
hold off the real career for as long as possible.
Yeah.
exactly.
There really could be a documentary made about all of his part-time jobs.
Yeah. If you gave me 20, we could talk about how many part time jobs.
Well, we will get
We'll
into
get into
your
some of that,
worst
yeah.
jobs later, but I want to know how many times you've been fired.
Yeah, right, exactly. And when it got more into the film industry with Blu-ray coming out as a little more stable of a job, but that got me thinking of what else to do. And I was in beer the whole time. When I was in school in Colorado, we had Boulder Beer in particular.
Okay.
New Belgium had launched, but Boulder Beer with Buffalo Gold at the time even was probably my first craft beer. as
Did you
we'll
go
probably get
to
into.
CU?
CU
Nice.
Boulder.
Cool.
I like how you say like Blu-ray was a pretty reliable job. You're like, hey, I just invested in this thing called Blockbuster.
Yeah,
I haven't even
totally.
heard of it.
Funny enough, the guy who started the company went all in on Laserdisc and lost his shit, right? He lost it all and then came back and said, there's something
But honey, it's the future.
something here. And you got it right the second time around.
Blu-rays. Gotta love them.
Yeah.
I have maybe 3 Blu-rays total, which is great.
That's how you.
Well, it was actually DVD for most of it. The stability came with Blu-ray
The much
because
better
nobody
medium.
knew what the hell was going on, including Sony, who developed Blu-ray. So we actually got hired as a consultant back to Sony to tell them how their technology worked. Because we got to work with all the other studios, so we actually kind of had insider knowledge from other places. But anyways, enough of where writing on the wall of eventually, hey, is Blu-ray going to last? Or with streaming and things, was the job going to last? And beer boomed, and in particular, San Diego's right down the road, so great, awesome beer booming out there.
Yeah,
And
one
then
of the best.
Colorado was booming.
A lot of Stone, a lot of Ballast Point,
Yeah.
all that, yeah.
And it was actually Dale's Pale Ale coming in a can. So really the first higher end craft beer to go into a can on a bigger level was Dale's, taking an old, those cask lines, and seeing that show up at a bar out in Santa Monica. I remember going, wow, that was really like what's going on in Colorado and with craft beer.
Yeah.
And we were traveling back a lot, but wanted to get into it. So knowing it was going to kind of boom, but no idea as big as it did, but was like I should go back to school instead of just jumping, because I'd been homebrewing this whole time for probably almost 10 years at that point.
Okay.
Like even when you're on the road and stuff.
Not on the road.
You're bringing
I was
first
drinking on the
You're bringing
road.
carboys in the van with you. Like, dude, we need space for the guitars.
Very
You're like,
dedicated.
Very
I have
dedicated.
a pretty awesome oatmeal
Hey,
stout that you're
could
gonna
you watch the turn? I got an active fermentation going on here.
I just picture you showing up at a venue being like, all right, so where's your cool ship? I need that.
Do you have 70-degree storage? I got a Saison in the
Yeah,
back of this van
totally.
that needs.
To be fair, of drinking drinking on tour was a great way of actually going around the country and around the world and being able to see how it interrelates with everything with beer. So,
Sure. Yeah.
So went back to brewing, decided big switch, go back to brewing school, went to Siebel in Chicago, and then the sister school that they partnered with over at Doman's in Munich, Germany.
Oh, wow.
So did that. Moved to Denver, which I'd never actually lived in Denver the whole time of growing up here. There really wasn't, besides going to concerts and shows, Denver really is not what it is now.
Oh, not at all.
For good or for
Very
better
different.
and worse.
I just went to
very
Albuquerque
different.
and everybody's like, this is what Denver used to be like.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, I'm a little scared.
No, Albuquerque is much worse than Denver ever used to be.
Right.
Albuquerque, if you like say the word fight, you have 10 dudes lining up
Ready?
to take you on.
They're like, finally.
Yeah, I've been training for
I've been
this.
waiting. Yeah.
I've been waiting 10 minutes for this.
So started
came back to
working.
Denver.
We'll wrap it up. I think I'm at 5 minutes. Started working and
you
just
lost
getting
your
jobs
late
in
night
it.
spot.
Wind Coop, yeah, exactly. Wind Coop Brewing, one of the
Okay.
original brew pubs. That really learned how to brew on stuff on crazy old equipment. Then took a more technical brewing job at AC Golden, which is inside of Coors, to kind of get the technical side with my schooling. And then at that point started working on business plan with some friends and one of the guys I went to college with actually, and ended up then working on the business plan for a long time, launching. Well, in about 2014, we took over the building, and then we opened almost exactly 5 years ago today. It was Valentine's Day 2015.
Nice.
Ooh,
I remember it used to be the old the distillery, the old.
Yep, it was Mile High
Mile High
Distill.
Spirits.
Mile High Spirits for only a couple of years. They
Yeah.
signed like a short-term lease. It was apparently a mechanic garage for many years. This is the building that we're in at 2920 Larimer. And they were there and actually were looking at buying, I think, several of the buildings next to us. And the whole deal didn't work out, and they wanted a bigger space.
Sure.
So they ended up, I think, buying their building down by the old Great Divide. now.
Good. That means they have money. So when FBI agents shoot people
Yeah,
on
when
their
they do
property,
backflips and shoot.
yeah, their gun drops out and shoots somebody, they can afford it.
That was amazing. What's funny is whenever people ask about the area, if they don't know, they'll be like, "Oh, what's that brand?" And I was like, "Do you remember hearing about the FBI agent who did a backflip and shot someone?" "Oh yeah," and I was like, "That's it. That's them."
That was a
I
cool
mean, that's a
ending.
great way to open.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Man, we really dodged a bullet with that one.
Whoa! Hey, we'll keep track of all the
Tristan.
comedy stuff here. This guy's going to take over the podcast.
That's right.
All right, so Tristan, tell us a little bit about you, because I know
Yeah.
you've got an extensive marketing background and a beer background, obviously. So
Totally.
Yeah,
And are we drinking now too, or can I have a beer?
So open your
Yeah.
feature beer. We'll get
Oh,
to
well,
that
it's
in just
feature
a
beer?
second.
Yeah, cool.
And then we can sip on that while Tristan's telling us a little bit about himself.
Sure. So I'm originally from Kentucky, which is very odd since I'm Asian, and a lot of people are like, that doesn't make any sense. But
No, it's more that your parent, as a first generation, why did your
Yeah.
parents move to Kentucky?
yeah, they actually moved
From-
there for through like a church program to go to college. So
Okay. Yeah.
they were both of their siblings.
Jesus
had done the
pays,
same
Jesus
thing.
pays, Jesus pays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they ended up in Kentucky, the most random place that immigrants can end up. But it ended up being
That's-
really great. And
It does seem like such a hey, we're coming to America.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that it's so big. And you're like, where'd you wind up? Kentucky.
Exactly.
Or even better, West Virginia.
But I wonder, maybe that's why Kentucky Fried Chicken is so big. I think Kentucky Fried Chicken is huge, and maybe they had this perception like, we're going to go to the land of plenty where buckets of fried chicken are just everywhere.
Flow from the
I
rooftops.
don't know.
see where this came
That's
from.
the immigrant story that I like to imagine from
Yeah,
my
for
parents.
sure.
But no, it's funny because you don't think of when you think about my beer introduction, a lot of people talk about how like Sierra Nevada was like one of their first influences, or Fat Tire from New Belgium. For me, it was a bourbon barrel aged amber ale from Kentucky Ale.
I know that beer.
Kentucky Ale Bourbon Barrel.
Yeah,
It used to be really, really good. It's still okay. But that in college, that was one of my first craft beer experiences.
That's like a high test beer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I dove right in, and from there I got into like Chimay randomly. And I remember the day that I decided to move to Colorado to do AmeriCorps, I bought a bottle of like Chimay Blue to share with my folks, and they're like, we have no idea what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
You're confusing us on multiple levels.
Yes.
You're moving for AmeriCorps. You brought us this ridiculous beer.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I ended up moving out here. In AmeriCorps, you're paid less than minimum wage for that year. So all we could really afford to do, living up in Fort Collins, was to go to New Belgium and Odell and
huff
try
paint.
Drink the free beers, huff paint.
Free tasters,
Yeah.
So I fell in love with the industry and wanted to figure out a way to give back. And I started a little beer blog called porchdrinking.com, and it's grown into this thing. So
You guys also have a podcast too.
we do, yeah.
Nice.
It's called the Porchcast, and luckily enough, I had wanted to work in beer full time. I had kind of done a beer adjacent thing with this app called Drizzly. It's an on-demand delivery service.
Oh yeah.
And the day that they laid off a bunch of us across the country, I happened to go into Ratio. I had been a regular there for the first year after they had opened, and I was like, "Hey guys, you want to hire me?" And they said, "Well, come in for an interview tomorrow." So the rest is history.
So you've been there 4 years.
Yes,
I know math. I'm good at that.
You're like, hey, isn't that the drizzly guy? Which also sounds like a way you'd pour syrup on pancakes.
Oh yeah.
Drizzly.
Yeah.
The old Drizzly app where they deliver maple syrup.
It's only a big hit in Vermont. But although everybody just has their own maple syrup farm in Vermont.
It's kind of big in Quebec too.
Yeah,
you
pretty
gotta. Canadians love that
Just
shit.
naming
It's
other
nationalized
places.
up there, isn't it? Isn't there a
It's
whole
the
thing in
official
Canada?
beverage, I think. Actually,
No, I'm
is
being
maple
serious.
syrup.
I think they have storage, national storage where all
Yeah, it's
maple
like
syrup
government
goes.
cheese, bro.
Yeah.
It's like they just got a huge reserve up there.
I think there's a documentary on it. Fascinating. I'm not kidding. It really is.
There's a
It's weird.
documentary on maple syrup
Oh,
in
yeah.
Canada. Well, there's a
Completely
documentary
done.
for everything these days.
That's true.
There's probably a podcast about maple syrup up there.
There's
Oh,
definitely a
yeah.
podcast about maple syrup up there. There's big
Ironically,
syrup
they
fanatics.
call it rotating porch drinking. That's the name of it.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
sticky.
tree drinking.
It's a sticky mess. So tell us what we're drinking right now.
Oh yeah. So this is a very unique, especially for
Yeah.
us on the side, off the wall beer.
Very excited about this.
Yeah. Well, and what we're really excited that you can't see, but maybe you heard that is, I just opened it out of a can.
Yeah.
So for kind
Tell
of
us
two
more.
reasons.
Oh yeah.
I mean, really, the celebration of our 5-year anniversary, we thought, what a fun time to do it. One reason we chose to not do a flagship is we wanted to be very clear with such a competitive market. We didn't want to enter the canning market and pull out or pretend, oh, here's, Domestica or Repeater, one of our flagships.
Sure.
And then come back off the shelf. So we are waiting. We're going to take our time with all that. But we are starting to look for a production facility, to build another facility where we will go into canning.
'Cause how many barrels are you guys at right now?
We produced almost 4,000 barrels this last year, and it's basically draft only. So, and we're self-distributed. So
Come a long way from the carboy in your van.
yeah, no, I know. I remember the first time I brewed at Wynkoop, which was 20 barrels. I made a note, and I kind of counted back through. I think I brewed more because that's 600 some gallons.
Yeah.
I think I just brewed more beer than I have in my entire life with every 5-gallon batch I had done. It's crazy.
Yeah. So in cans that we're drinking right now, this beer is.
Oh yeah, so this is King of Carrot Flowers.
Yeah, we got to talk about it.
This is a fun beer, and this is the fun side of brewing. This started as a project we did, a lot of the community outreach we do, and in the neighborhood, in Elyria, Swansea, is an indoor farm called the Grow House. And one of their big fundraisers, Eat Denver, which is our independent restaurant network, each year does a week-long set of dinners inside of this farm to highlight and raise money for Grow House. Tell me if I'm saying any of this wrong. But so all these top chefs of these independent restaurants, each night there's like 5 chefs. Each course is like a different chef. And it's only gone maybe 5 years. We may have been the second year or not, if not the first year. So since it started. And it was one of those things it sounded interesting, hey, with the chefs and this whole idea of this indoor farm. And we never even got to see the place when we first started partnering with them. Just thought it's a neat idea. And took that kind of as inspiration to do a harvest style beer because it's called Harvest Week, that full week. I guess I didn't say that part. So we were like, oh, let's do some kind of harvest beer, something, plant-based, or what could we do? And maybe this is one of the first where I had kind of the name in mind before a beer. and King of Carrot Flowers, and obviously the carrot.
that does kind of sound like an acid trip.
Right.
And
if you look at the art that Anna Goss did for it,
it's beautiful.
be
like
a
while you're tripping
acid
balls
trip.
off, you're just running through the woods singing, "I'm the king of carrot flowers."
Yes. So
there's carrot juice in this.
yes,
beer.
this is fermented out carrot juice for sure. And that was the big challenge. So carrot is very earthy.
Well, most breweries go the fruit direction
Yes.
and make milkshake, slushy, everything, it just winds up being just juice at
Yep.
that point.
Yeah.
So you guys are going the V8 approach.
Yeah, we
which
were
is
like, we
very
want to put
interesting.
salad in your mouth instead.
Yeah, it's better.
Well,
it's more
and-
health conscious, maybe, less sugar. Your
We're
eyesight.
not claiming any health benefits, so
I
GTP.
am. I'm claiming health
is a good
benefits.
point.
I can see better now.
Not a
My
doctor.
vision is through the roof.
That's because you haven't masturbated in probably 2 years.
It's coming out of my ears.
But yeah, it is interesting. We've done a decent amount, especially with Saisons, one of our flagships, using a French Saison strain that goes pretty dry. And we love it. And we've done a lot with fruit. But one maybe distinguishing thing over especially the new trend is we usually ferment out if we do fruit or even this, like carrots that has a lot of sugar actually, but we actually ferment it out so it goes dry, so it's not sweet. So that idea, we tend to go with dry finished beers.
Yeah, sure.
More on the crisp dry end and try to accentuate either the fruitiness through its aroma or other reasons. Like in this beer, we have coriander in that you can pick up.
I think most of the beers that I've ever had from you guys are not only great, but they're always really well balanced and very clean, crisp, like as you were describing.
Yeah.
Where not a lot of residual, like leftover sugar that I'm getting or tasting, like high level of attenuation,
Yep.
So, just like great flavors, but like everything's kind of there in the right places.
Yeah, and it's one of the choices we made, once again, from touring, of a lot of the beer that connected in with live music tends to be drier, drinkable beers.
Sure.
And that idea of connecting in community and being in hot places and enjoying beer and being able to enjoy many is kind of flowed over into Ratio of a lot of the beers we do.
Yeah, sure.
I like we go the other end as well occasionally, but you'll generally see us more on that end of beers you can have several of.
Yeah, and even with our Hold Steady Scotch Ale, for a beer that appears so dark and roasty and does have those flavors, I think one of the truly, incredible aspects of Jason's approach towards brewing is his ability to blend malt bills, so that you can get balanced profiles even with such a roasty dark beer like that.
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed you didn't pick that for your chuggable beer because we haven't decided, we haven't said what it's
We
going to be
should have
yet.
chosen each other's chuggable beer.
That's
would've been
actually
fun.
something fun
That
that we
would've
can
been real
consider.
fun.
There's an idea
And we-
for you guys.
So
Yeah.
everybody obviously goes with like Pilsners, Kolsch's, Helles, things like that. But I'm starting to think, and we could talk about it later, but if somebody chooses something that's over 8%, you get 3 seconds off your
Yeah,
score.
some kind of
man.
bonus.
Doing something
Good
like
triple
that.
IPA.
Probably cut the time in half. I
Yeah,
think that's
half?
probably-
No. I mean, well, you gotta make it.
Yes.
Okay. It's still the same skill, but
That's
we're
true.
helping
Good
you out.
point.
We're helping you out.
You guys got to get Sam Lale on the podcast. He's like renowned for chugging the most ridiculous things.
Yeah.
He's over at Resolute Brewing.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
What kind of say things? Like how
Like-
many different kinds of things?
Well,
is
one
he
tomato
chugging?
I remember one time.
Tomato juice.
16 ounces. Bam.
I know somebody that chugs hot sauce.
Oh.
Like somebody that like a local comic that regularly chugs hot sauce.
That's the Hot Shots challenge, isn't that? Oh man.
I don't know.
But he once combined all the dregs from a bottle share and chugged that.
That's
which
terrible.
Was the most disgusting thing.
Yeah.
yeah, I
that's
bet
insane.
the shits were terrible.
Yeah,
I've had
it's
all that
so
bacteria and yeast is just sitting well in his stomach.
There was like a YouTube video of a homeless guy that would go to the library to get internet access, and one time he snuck in a handle of Fireball and he chugged it in a video that he made. And I've never been so disgusted with something in my entire life.
The only
And it
thing I
was.
don't like about that whole video is the fact that he didn't share with anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
got it in the
Fireball at the
library.
library.
Yeah.
Pass a shot around.
Gross. That's disgusting. You're a monster.
Yeah. Now, so is King of Carrot Flower something you can get all the time, or are you guys releasing that special for your anniversary?
It is special. I mean, typically we've now done it at least once per year since then. So elderflower, by the way, is the flower of King of Carrot Flowers. And that adds that kind of fruity candy-like note to it. Elderflower is what's in like Saint Germain, if you've ever had that. Any kind of liqueurs. If you go look at fancy drinks, next time you're at like Death & Co., there's probably some kind of elderflower or Saint Germain.
Sure.
down there.
Better for beer, less for Valentine's Day, elderflower, I assume.
What?
Not
Yes.
something you'd want to give your date unless you're giving her a 6-pack of...
Or tea.
Yeah.
Yeah, or tea. IKEA loves elderflower.
I'm more into
Did you
younger
say IKEA?
flowers.
Like the,
Yeah. Yeah.
like the
It's a
store?
very Swedish thing, apparently.
Interesting.
The store.
I caught that joke.
Do they just have
Thanks,
elderflower?
Tristan.
Well, you caught me off guard with the IKEA thing. I mean, I know them for furniture. I didn't necessarily assume there were
And
elderflowers.
meatballs.
And meatballs.
And, yeah, the
horse
meatballs.
or whatever.
More
Horse
important.
meatballs?
Yeah, they got in trouble in Europe for having horse meat in the meatballs.
Well,
Although everyone in Europe was
it's a
like,
different culture.
This is fine. This
yeah.
is what we eat here.
yeah,
That's what
horse
they
is
do
the
in
best
Kentucky.
meat.
I mean-
Horse is the best meat.
yeah.
Now, you had mentioned that you thought of the name before you thought of the actual beer itself. I just kind of wanted to ask you, I know that naming your beers, and because in the industry there's a lot of cease and desist orders,
Yeah.
but you go straight for like music influence stuff, correct? Like Domestica is from Cursive.
In
gonna-
an attempt
Sorry,
to turn his phone off, he actually
turned
made
it
it louder.
Yes. Right. Well, so one thing for sure, we're actually really cognizant of it. What's funny is coming from the music industry too. Actually, it was in a little bit of music law things and how some of the trademarks and things like that work, and what you can use for titles, and obviously even in film. Interestingly, right, most film titles you actually can't copyright until you become famous. There's always these weird exceptions. So Star Wars is the exception. But for example, Kickin' and Screamin', which is a great one of Noah Baumbach's first amazing indie movies, was also remade.
Tristan is ashamed right
No, it's a
now.
great movie.
Just
by
put
the
his
way.
face in his
believe
hands
I
right now.
just hear about this movie.
Yeah, so
like
Noah Baumbach,
5
who just
times
did
All the
Marriage
time.
Story, back in the early 90s, did this amazing movie called Kicking and Screaming. 10 years later, there's a family kids movie with Will Ferrell as a soccer coach, also called Kicking and
Yeah.
Screaming. That's actually not a trademark infringement because generally you can't trademark titles on things like books and movies until you become famous like Star Wars. So you can't remake because it's too famous. So there's always these weird rules. Anyways, back to beer names. And we've seen it in the
Detour.
industry. Detour of cease and desist. We do try to take, it's one thing where we take inspiration from a name, and maybe we like to have a subtle nod, but we definitely make a very concerted effort of directly on our beer. There's no tie-in to the original inspiration. For us, we are trying to separate that the beer has that name and that's separate. Now, if you look at beer names together, you can start seeing, hey, clearly you pulled an inspiration from it. But
Sure.
you'll notice there's no direct, we never directly talk about the inspiration on, for sure, any packaging, whatever, because actually, regardless if that's a trademark infringement or not, which it would be at that point, we also don't think it's the right thing to do. We're not trying to imply anything we're inspired after is in any way associated with the beer or that they're associating themselves.
Yeah.
So we do try to stay on that of, while it's an inspiration, in no way besides the name is now tied to the beer. So it's like a subtle nod. To
Interesting.
That, if that
Except
makes
for
super
the one that we
interesting.
named after the song "Happy Birthday." That was pretty obvious. At that point.
That one was a little on the nose. Yeah. Come out with Hurt Truth Stout. It's like, all right, I think Lizzo's kind of got that one covered. yeah.
With arms wide open.
All right, well, I feel like that brings us to probably one of our favorite
the
segments
fun
of the show.
part.
Yeah, I mean, let's get these guys a
Yeah.
buzz.
All
Let's bring it to the most
right.
chuggable
Nice.
beer.
So we've got a
Well,
couple
let it
beers
warm up
here
a
for
touch.
you.
Yeah, we try to be
cold
considerate of you
is
guys.
harder to chug.
Yeah, it stings the nostrils.
Yeah,
It's tight on the senses. You get brain freeze. I've had a slushy or two in my day. I get it. So we have a couple rules for the chuggable beer, and so Steve's gonna time. The second you start chugging, he'll start timing it. So we're gonna ask you to tell us what the beer is, just the name of it, and then as soon as you're done chugging it, you have to describe it to us. That will not be timed. So
And
as
you
soon as
guys-
you put your glass down, time stops.
Yeah, you guys will go separately to help me time it easier.
Yeah, so if you're a little
You have a
gassy,
different beer than me? Domesticas?
Damascus.
Okay.
poured you that Scotch ale, bro.
I know. Actually, it wouldn't have been so
wild?
bad.
Yeah, actually the Scotch ale probably wouldn't be that bad. I mean, it's malty, sweet. not that
Like
big
we
a deal.
said, besides people who chug, if you're not chugging and drinking, its carbonation is awful.
That's-
so you don't want to have like a saison, like a DuPont saison.
Oh my gosh.
Or sometimes overly sweet, thick beer. But besides that, the alcohol will hit us later. It
Now,
doesn't
Jason,
matter.
you had said that there are two very different types of people for chugging. Those that can
Yes.
open their throat a lot,
Yes.
and then gulpers.
Yes.
Is this something you've studied before? Or?
I've just noticed it. I am definitely a drinker. I'm not the open the throat, chug the beer down.
Yeah.
Either in 3, or I've seen people that would have your record at maybe 1 second.
Right,
of
I've seen
beer.
that too. It's
I've
crazy.
seen the full liter Stein in Germany at school in a bar, and it was one of the most amazing things. It felt like it was like David, or who is it? Blaine? Who is it? David Copperfield?
David Blaine.
I think either one, yeah.
Either
same
one.
field.
Magic.
Yeah,
It's
same
magic.
field. Yeah.
But
This
besides
is actually
that,
my
I'm more
professor.
drinking, which is a different skill. It's literally just how fast can you do that swallowing motion
Yeah.
in a row
Yeah.
without the brain freeze
It's the
happening.
difference between Usain Bolt and a marathon runner. You know? Yeah. You've just
Well, it
developed
almost
a
should be 2
marathon
fields.
mentality.
It's like the butterfly stroke versus freestyle.
Sure, yeah. So,
This one's a little choppier. This is more like the breaststroke, what you're going to see from me.
okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be thinking of you doing the breaststroke the entire time that you're
A
chugging
little bit
this beer.
slower, but a lot of
You'll
muscle
get
still
there,
involved.
yeah.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
even if you're a little gassy or whatever right afterward, we encourage you to burp into the microphone because we do consider belchability in the most chuggable beer. That's important to us. And just tell us a little bit about it, and good luck.
Okay. Wait, are you going? Are we doing this separately? Oh, we're
Gotta do it
separate.
separate. We gotta time it
Okay. Are
appropriately.
you giving me a countdown?
All right, whenever you're ready.
3, 2, 1. Jason's going. All right, he's spilling half of it out of the side of the glass to start.
He's getting
so
there.
He's
getting
doing
there.
okay. Well, he's going to catch some in his,
catching it, and
in
then
his
he's
palm
gonna
of his
finish-
hand. Take a
he's
little bit
taking
of a break.
Take a breather. Yeah, you earned it. A lot of work.
This
going
is
on.
the Domestica Standard Ale, by the way, one of their flagship beers.
He's making me
Possibly
look
the most
good.
popular.
All
Not so
right.
bad.
Okay.
He's even got a little milk mustache.
There we go.
Oh, wow. That break was the turn. It was the 50-yard turn.
Yeah. He's even got a little drizzle on his shirt
little
to,
drizzle.
to
I
explain
think
to
I
the
lost
police
about
officer later.
I'd call it a half ounce to an ounce. I lost.
Now, Jason, tell us a little bit about what you just drank.
Oh, yeah. I describe it as a lot. I describe it as filling.
Yeah, I don't think I've chugged since.
Any flavor profile stuff?
All right. Yeah, well, now I'm getting some aftertaste. That whole time it was just front taste, if that's the word.
Yeah.
What do you call it when he first hits?
It's real
just
front
that.
heavy. This beer is a real front heavy beer.
The whole time.
Yeah.
Now I'm getting the back end. I am getting it. This beer was a little bit of an homage to lager while brewing an ale. It is Saaz and Middle Fruit, which are a little bit spicier, earthy hops. So I'm getting that now.
You getting a lot of that spice?
You're really good at talking into a microphone when you look like you're just completely miserable.
He's crying right now.
I
He's
feel
beat
pretty
red.
good.
Yeah,
The
it
thing
feels
is,
great.
about 30 seconds from now, I'll be like, that was pretty good. We should do another. But right now, I need the 30 seconds.
We can hold down the fort if you want to run back and get another growler.
You can go twice.
Yeah. So actually, before Tristan goes, just a question before I forget. So when you say standard ale, was it just you were coming up kind of with your own marketing term, quote unquote, for like half ale, kind of half lager?
Yeah, in reality, it was a little bit of a fun tongue-in-cheek to the style American Standard Lager.
Okay.
But we're doing it with an ale yeast.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's exactly that. So it's not really a term, but that's what we want to call it. It's American Standard, and we thought it is kind of American Standard of what just a beer is.
Because I hear sometimes, because again, I love your guys' beer, but sometimes I hear beer geeky people be like, well, it's a standard ale. And I'm like, you don't even know what the fuck that means.
Right,
so
right.
Why are you I
know.
That you guys came up, I understand the term, but they say it as if it's a known kind
that's
of
good.
thing. And
It's
it's an
taken
opportunity.
off.
Oh, yeah.
It's an opportunity for them to sound smarter than
Right.
everybody else.
Maybe you've heard of the
I don't know if you
Standard
know
Ale.
a standard ale. It's like, no, I haven't, because it's not a fucking
It's not a
thing.
thing,
It's just a unique thing that they created.
You know what's hilarious is we have finally said, in the tap room it's fine and you can have, here's comes a burp.
There it is.
But in the tap room it was almost that tongue-in-cheek and funny, and we can explain, hey,
Sure.
American Standard Lager. But it has caused enough confusion now when we started going into restaurants and all that, where we definitely sometimes go, all right, not that it's a joke, but it was like, have we pushed this too far? Do we need to rename it?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I know. At some point we just go
cling
with
on
it.
to any
We just
bit
go
of
with it.
information that they can find that makes them feel superior to other people, so they just take some of that stuff and run with it.
Well, I like to say that it's called. I like to refer to it as our show beer, the beer that you enjoy at a show. So
Like a horse meatball,
exactly.
like a best in
Yeah.
show.
Well, speaking of sorry, go ahead.
I was just
Speaking of
saying, we'll
horse
just keep
meatballs.
throwing obscure marketing terms onto it, and to the point where people are just like, oh, whatever.
So this beer is a real horse meatball. That's what we it's very well rounded. You can find it at IKEA.
Well, I just saw now it's at least the second one, so it might be becoming a style of a mountain lager or the mountain. So Who has Mountain
just
Standard?
Fucking
which is a
people
beer
like
name.
Tristan just coming up with marketing terms that don't mean a
Totally
goddamn
using
thing.
I saw it used again now, and now it just said, and it was literally in the style, it was a series of beers, and it was like Helles, whatever, and then it said Mountain Lager. And I thought the same thing. I was like, wait a minute, is this now actually a style?
No,
What's
It's
a
only
Mountain
a
Lager?
style as much as people like just adopt it. I feel.
But does it mean anything?
No.
Okay.
Like yes, like somebody graduated with a marketing degree from CU Boulder, and they all sit around at a table and say, "Now you give us an idea," and they toss the ball around. They're like, "What if we say a mountain lager?" And they all clap for each other and they go, "Yay!" And they're like,
Yeah.
"Yay, we did something."
Well, what's funny is I know they start as that, but then sometimes they do turn into styles,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Kind of like New England style IPAs.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
What do you? I'm just gonna start going into breweries and places and just being like, "What do you guys have for Mountain Standard ales?"
Totally.
Yeah. All right, Tristan,
All right,
you're
here
up,
we
buddy.
go.
Let's see what you got.
The time has come.
The time is now. Doing
Oh,
okay.
Tristan.
Doing okay. There's a little hiccup there.
Making
so I
his
thought he was
parents
gonna bail,
proud.
but no, he's going. He's pushing through it.
Kentucky, like a
Whoa!
wow.
Representing the great state of Kentucky. Yeah, there it is. Now tell us what you think about the beer and what it means to you.
This is one of my favorite beers of ours because it is just so easy drinking.
I feel like you're holding back a
I,
pretty
I,
big
I
burp
like
right now.
I like to say that it's a little biscuity because I do get some of the spiciness from it that gives it kind of like that bready biscuity taste.
like
to
a
it.
KFC biscuit,
If only.
Kentucky biscuit.
Just butter it up for me and put some jam.
Can you guys
on it.
please name a beer Kentucky biscuit?
Pretty good. No, it's just I like to say it's great to go for lawn mowing or enjoying at a show or whatever the occasion. So
Yeah.
nice everyday drinking beer.
Who cares if you're driving your John Deere down a main road? I just had a Domestica Standard Ale.
Exactly. Very biscuity.
Have you guys ever had this beer? Reminds me a lot of a brewery back home in upstate New York, Industrial Arts. Are you familiar with those guys?
Yeah.
I know the name. I haven't had the
Yeah,
beer.
they're great. Make great beer. They make a beer called Tools of the Trade, which is kind of a similar idea. It's technically an ale, but they wanted to brew it in such a way that it was like it had the drinkability of a pilsner, so a little bit more dry, a little more crisp. And I think stuff like that is the best because you're getting the best qualities of both kinds of beer. But do you guys often think that it becomes confusing for some consumers where they don't really understand it, or it doesn't directly say IPA on it, so it doesn't sell as well, or it doesn't say Pilsner because that's coming into 4A again, like that kind of stuff?
Well, actually, you just mentioned with the rise of it's kind of a waves of styles coming back in favor or not. That does change because for a while when we would almost describe like, hey, we were trying to go between like a light lager and a Pilsner with this, and it was like, Pilsner? I mean, not, obviously people...
I just met her.
But really, you've seen it, the explosion again of people knowing what it is again, especially in the craft scene of, obviously people have had the classic styles, either German or Czech Pilsners, but to see it again really launching in a lot of breweries.
Yeah, it's having a renaissance. in
Yeah,
craft-
so
at
things-
least with craft beer people.
Yeah, things you used to have to describe, all of a sudden now you don't anymore, and sometimes we've moved away. It depends on where it is, too. Obviously, Colorado's a pretty smart or mature market for craft. It's not, some of the places that don't have as much craft beer where you might still have to describe an IPA to people.
Albuquerque,
Right.
for example.
Maybe, for example. And so that changes a lot. But we've noticed, though, even sometimes to not overcomplicate, especially if you don't have the time to talk or certain menus, we will simplify. And it's not that people don't know, but sometimes they won't ask. And that quick purchase. So what's like our Darklands is really, it's basically almost a Schwarzbier, like a dark or a black lager. It's a little bit lighter than that. We've described it different ways, even as a Schwarzbier before. But we realize on this, especially quick menus where people might not ask, we've literally gone back to calling it a dark lager.
Yeah.
And it literally changed the sales of people because they understood. Now, generally, when you say lager, I know that's a whole style. But if you just have lager, they know it tends to be drier, crisper. It's not going to be a sweet stout.
Yeah.
And then the dark, obviously, is implying that side. And it was amazing how much people at least inherently go, oh, okay, I know. That's what I do want. I know what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible too, in seeing other publications doing like these like monthly blind tastings. I think 2 of them just had a blind tasting for dark lager that we submitted to, and so even without any provoking from us, the fact that other publications and other, establishments are recognizing dark lager just is a testament to kind of like the industry adopting the style.
Totally.
Yeah, because people want things they can crush.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, right. And there's a new rise of of especially Mexican lagers and beers again, and things like Negro Modelo. Speaking of darker lagers, people understanding that, and I really think some of that rise helped. We've had the beer for a while and seen the natural growth. I think it's a great beer, but if people getting introduced to that style in other areas, even if it is a big, massive brewery like a Negro Modelo, putting this beer out, it actually helps us too, because people start knowing, oh, I know what a dark lager is.
Totally.
Yeah, they know what the most distributed version of this thing is.
Yep, and so they'll at least try it in the craft version.
Yeah. Now, you guys have your marketing aesthetic and vibe based on your personal history is very punk rock, very skateboard, counterculture minded, so to speak. So how much of that do you really try to like play up like at your space? Because I mean the space kind of speaks to that, but like what thoughts go into that, and what's kind of like your marketing presence like at the brewery, in the market, especially as you're starting to roll out cans? Like how much consideration do you give to that?
Yeah, I would say that, one of the things that Jason and Scott, our two co-founders, have kind of impressed upon us from the get-go is, we want to, make sure that we're super on brand in everything that we do, but also not hit anything too on the head.
And what would you say that brand is?
So I think you described it perfectly in terms of counterculture, kind of punk rock, but not in-your-face punk rock. We really do appreciate providing a safe space for people of all backgrounds, while celebrating the arts and music as a whole.
Yeah.
We do a lot of our partnerships are based within the arts and music space, and I think that kind of organic marketing has really been beneficial to us in terms of supporting groups that are like-minded and the people that appreciate our focus on arts and music. So
I think you guys probably are the best brewery in town in terms of that specifically. Like, just what you guys have done with, you get some major musicians in there to play acoustic shows in the back.
Yeah.
You do comedy every Wednesday night and sometimes other nights on top of that, which is great. Everybody that runs the comedy show there is great. We're big fans of that. And then even like the wrestling you guys do outside over the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
You guys, honestly, I feel like you guys embody the Denver culture better than basically every other brewery that's in town. Or if nobody's doing it better, let's put it that way. There might be people that are doing it just as well, but I don't think there's anybody doing it like that embodies like the spirit of the city, the vibe, all that stuff.
Well, first, thank you. Yeah. And then, but yeah, second, one I would just add on to that is early on of realizing, people say, oh, what's your shtick or what's your thing? And we're like, well, we didn't really want to have a shtick or a thing.
And people always ask that about comedians too. They're
yeah.
Like, what's your shtick?
Yeah, what's your deal?
What's your deal?
What kind of, what crazy beer or what's going to be your one thing?
Do you have funny voices? Is it mostly dick jokes? What do you got?
But in the meantime, there is something of you've got to stand out among 75 Denver breweries and 400 in the state. But back to connecting obviously we met through music. But really, it's not that it has to be that on the head. It was thinking back, well, what is really the connection there? And with beer and with music and beer, it was this connection to community. And in particular, one thing we've said is we're an urban brewery. And everything that brings with it is, and in particular, community, and especially those arts. Like you said, it can come from comedy. What gets people out of the house? Comedy, arts, music, all these different things, even if it's wrestling. What's great is, why maybe we embody Denver is it's not that we're per se doing all these things. We provide a conduit to showcase the awesome talent of the rad stuff people are doing in Denver.
Yeah. I like to say
there's a big difference of that of being a way to showcase or highlight it versus building everything ground up. It's like back from that's that DIY, which gets overused. But the do-it-yourself, it really is more about networking and going, well, what are these people that I like doing, and how can you facilitate that?
Yeah, I like to say that we really do truly, and I really appreciate this of Jason and Scott, is that our co-founders have always, from the get-go, placed an importance on supporting the community. I tell people that our beer is a vehicle for positive change in the community, and it's true because from the onset, Scott and Jason have made it a very intentional effort to to donate a percentage of the beer that we produce each year to local nonprofit groups and community groups.
That's awesome.
We generally strive for about 5% of the beer that we produce every year to go back to the community. So, and the incredible thing is that, you know, a lot of businesses will say like, oh yeah, we really like to give back, but like each year they sit down with us and say, hey, we grew by this many barrels, so that means you have to give even more beer this year, which is a great problem to have. So really putting their beer where their mouth is and getting it out there to the community. So makes my job a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that phrase, put the beer where the mouth is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's something you hear outside of Houston, I believe.
So before we get into another segment or keep the show going, we did just pour a guest beer, and this is from actually some neighbors of yours and our mutual friend, Contacto, an orange Roussan wild ale, about 8.6%. Says Contacto is a blend of many different years of wild and spontaneous beers. They make the best. They make great sours.
Yeah.
They're
Yes.
wonderful.
Hello, Brandon and Jan. Your beer's great.
Yeah, man. Jan's awesome guy. Loved talking to him. Yeah. Beer is pulled from various oak wine casks. It was aged in orange Roussan grape must for 3 months and then bottle conditioned. The beer is nicely balanced in acidity while still being very complex.
I'm going to pretend like I know what Roussan means. Does anyone actually know what it means?
I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I
Good.
think it's actually a type of
It's
grape.
Roseanne. Like
Yeah, I think it's
Roseanne.
the French version of Roseanne.
It's
when
the
they do.
It's the racist lady.
Those grapes are super racist.
Got
Yeah,
canceled
yeah.
from her show.
I'm tasting a hint of misogyny in this beer.
I thought the beer was white.
Orange, just like Trump.
Now-
Oh, wait. Oh.
Whoa, hey, this is a mostly conservative podcast. Yeah, I don't know. You guys getting any initial thoughts on this beer? Because you guys don't do a lot of sour stuff, right? I mean, it's because you have a tight space. Working with sour cultures, I'm sure, is just it could potentially be problematic, you know, in terms of getting things infected.
Yeah, we do a decent amount. We're kind of an in between. We're not trying to be Crooked Stave or an OMF or Casey Brewing and Blending, where that's their main focus. But we're also trying to do more than pay lip service to it. So we do a smaller amount, so we're not releasing a ton of them, but we try to have enough to be able to blend. Because I'll tell you, of when I was brewing at AC, Troy Casey at the time, who started Casey Brewing and Blending, back with Crooked Stave, some of those original, besides New Belgium, sour breweries of Colorado. Really learned a lot, and some of the experiments we were doing inside was the consistency and great barrel aging, especially on wilds and sours. There's a lot of where you've got to be able to blend, just like getting in more into the wine world, but also you have to dump some bad barrels.
Yeah,
And the really good ones are dumping some barrels because it didn't go. It goes acetic, more vinegar. You get rid of it. Or sometimes you maybe want a little acetic, but just like at 2% blend. So,
And that's one of those things that you run into in this industry. There's so many players in this industry that I think if you sat everybody down at a table and you're face to face, you'd say, yeah, that's the right thing to do, right? You got to
Right.
dump this barrel, you got to dump this batch. It's not up to snuff. But there's some people that because of debt or because they just they really want to make the money and don't really care about duping their consumer, they'll just release stuff. Even if
Yes.
it's inconsistent to quality standards, even if it didn't turn out well, like, you know, you see stuff, non-sour producing people coming out with sour stouts as a single batch, and you're like,
Yeah,
I
and you're
don't
like, wait a
think
minute.
you did that on purpose.
yeah, sure. There's sometimes happy accidents, and then there's sometimes bad decisions.
Sure.
right?
I mean, a lot of
But,
times you wind up finding great new brewing processes or a different way to ferment or age things based on an accident, right?
Yep.
But then there's other times where you're like, you're just trying to take advantage of idiots
Yep.
right now.
Sounds like
And that pressure comes when you have less too. I think especially, let's say you have like 4 wood barrels going, and you spend all this money on them, and you take a year and all this labor, and then all of a sudden you're like, it's not that good. That pressure I feel like to put out is high.
Yeah.
So we do it's nice when you can get to enough barrels where, hey, we've got at least 12 or whatever it is. Sometimes you just go for it and it works or it doesn't. But it does make it easier if you've got 10, 12 barrels and you're like, we don't love this one, to actually go, that's fine. We still have 9 or 10.
Yeah,
and
sure.
to make that right decision on blending and not feel a pressure of we've got to just release something.
And the more,
I would say that there's a real weird parallel there with that and like putting together like a comedy act where it's like if you're pressured, maybe it doesn't come through, but you get a lot of like happy accidents that come because it's like, oh well, I have 10 minutes of comedy, but only 8 of them are good, and so you just kind of have to like stumble your way through the other 2 minutes, and you end up finding something great in there.
Yeah, and the other part of that too is if you're so comfortable with your material and you know you can deviate away from a bit, because a lot of times bits are, we've literally cranked every word out of this bit from its original standpoint to get it to as short of a time frame as possible, so that every word counts and it fits within this like same amount of time. But if you know the bit so well, then you can start deviating away from it a little bit, and that's where you might find something, even if it's just brilliant for that night, you know, with that group of people, and something, a tag or a joke that winds up being something that you stick with and something that actually is incorporated into the bit.
Yeah, and what's nice, you guys have to be a lot more vulnerable out to the public when you take those deviations. But for example, like we do some sour, especially we've for a while been doing some dark sour bases.
Now, are
that
you
we
using
release
like
once a year?
Brett Wild Ales, or are you doing like lacto stuff?
Well, most of our souring comes from lacto, but we do have some Brett in there that started, and a lot of our barrels we're actually fermenting in the barrels. So we're doing whatever's in the barrels, which tends to be a mixture of wild and sour. And then we usually take a mother pitch from a barrel that we loved and we re-inoculate. So we'll release Loveless this maybe March, which is and then we'll age it on some blackberries and raspberries, which we've done maybe this will be our 3rd or 4th year. We are doing our golden sour base for the first time, and that we're going to age on some fruit or different things. But for example, before this, we came from Novo, where we do a coffee fest in March every year as well, which is right around the time of this dark sour release. So we've been experimenting. We're going to age some of this sour and do a coffee sour.
Wow.
And this is once again of trying to be that vulnerable, stick out, like you said, of, hey, you've got your bit dialed. We feel like we have our base beer dialed. Let's try something. The nice thing is we get to sit and fiddle and try all this before giving it to the public.
Right.
Although at the end of the day, there's a little bit of, we like it. There's some delicious stuff that we're using with some neat beans done in different processing ways out of the Congo today in particular that we're going to try. We're going to see if people like it as a coffee, this pressed coffee and aging it on our sour beer.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it seems like a high acidity coffee bean with more fruit forward flavors would complement like a wild yeast strain more than something that's a lot of chocolate overtones. Like,
and that was our challenge today. Is actually you in food and in beer you have complementing and contrasting, and they can work and they can be opposite. And if you take a too sour beer and you take coffee, it can be very acidic. On its own, in a good way, or very fruit forward. That can actually be too complementary, where you actually drive the acidity too far. Yeah. So we were trying to find weird balances and some funky stuff in the coffee because we had a lot of acidity from the beer, so we didn't need it from the coffee. So pretty fun.
That's awesome.
Now, I mean, so you guys, it's great that you brew saisons. We got a standard ale. You love doing sours. What style do you hate? Like, what is there a style that you just hate?
Well, you know what? Actually, I'm going to say it right away. Well, the last 2 breweries I worked at were my lead.
I love that you're so excited about this.
Well, it's because 2 breweries I really brewed the most beer of my life, or probably my least favorite style, and they were the flagship beers at both of those breweries. It was amber ale or an amber lager.
Okay. Ambers are the worst.
It is the classic 90s. Kind of that first wave.
Especially in Colorado.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how brewers made their name here. I mean, between Odell and New Belgium,
all of them.
Ambers ruling.
And to be fair, so I was at, I'll name them, a Wynkoop at Rail Yard Ale, and then at AC Golden was Colorado Native. Now, Colorado Native, the nice thing was more of a hybrid to almost a pale ale, but it was almost an amber. A lot of that in it. The nice thing is, so it's probably my least favorite style.
Yeah.
I grew to really appreciate and enjoy both of them when they're brewed well and done well.
Sure.
So I suppose that's what I'm taking out of it.
If you waterboard yourself with enough amber ale, you'll just really start to enjoy it.
But it is funny. So I tend to like the drier, really clean side of things, or then swing me all the way to the other, the big chocolatey, roasty, heavy, big stout. And I tend in the middle is where I tend to not love as much.
You heard it here first. Jason's a swinger. Tristan, what do you hate the most style wise?
It's probably like a real strong Rauch beer.
Yeah, not into the smoke.
What about our smoke signals?
That leads to my
Yes.
next point. We did produce a smoked lager this year, and it actually ended up being one of my favorites of the year.
Nice.
The smokiness was very subtle, but overall, I've had some Rauch beers that have been like, it tastes like smoked meat.
That's like anything
And-
else, right? I think no matter what ingredient you're using, it still has to be there in balance. It's
Yes,
it can be
exactly.
more of an accent than it's in the entire thing.
Absolutely. And so I credit our team, I should never doubt them, and I generally don't, but they put out a
Man,
really
you're really
great,
kissing ass right
they're-
now.
I mean, no. That's the reason that I ended up wanting to work for Ratio to begin with, is because I love the beer, and so Smoke Signals ended up being fantastic. Yeah,
That's cool.
it was great.
Make a smoked beer. Use like some barbecue sauce as an adjunct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw it right on to Franklin's barbecue.
Beer really
Owlbear.
beer really smells like Afghan Kush. That's my kind of smoke beer.
Well, we've been pretty complimentary. Do you think we should take them down a notch, Corey? Yeah?
Let's take some
Okay,
go.
cool. So this is one of our favorite segments that we do here, and we find that it's the same for everybody else that's a guest on the podcast. But what we like to do is find some negative reviews online.
Oh, there we
and,
go. Let's do it.
It's cathartic. It's good.
Yeah, have you read some of
We
these.
should have dug back through because we probably have some favorites from back in the day.
If there's any that come to mind after we read these, you're more than welcome
Right,
to
yeah.
talk about them.
So
And before
this-
we forget, by the way, at the end of the episode, we should reveal their times.
Oh, I could tell you that right now.
We're really bad at that because by the time
I was about 20 seconds. I bet you were about 10 seconds. That's my guess.
So, Jason, you finished at 17.65 seconds, which is
Not bad.
below me drinking an IPA. Keep that in mind. Tristan, you came in at a humble 8.32 seconds.
Oh, all right, respectable score.
Yeah,
Respect.
very respectable.
You
And
didn't take the break that I took. I think.
Yeah, I didn't do the flip turn. Yeah.
yeah,
no
you
flip
definitely you used that swimming analogy, and you definitely needed to come up for air for a second.
A couple times.
You're probably taking more of a backstroke on that one, if we're going to be honest. Time to take
All
a
right,
break.
Jason. Well, I'm going to have you read this first one because you had us try the King of Carrot Flowers. And
Oh, good.
honestly, it's fucking amazing.
It's a great
so
beer.
delicious.
But you got to figure that carrots are going to turn something.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot how much I love that beer. It's so
Oh,
good.
yes, this is great. Okay, we've got it's 2-star. We're already starting. Am I starting
Starting
up
strong.
top?
Pretty good.
Oh, this is great. Hipster location with hipster beers.
Oh, yeah.
Tried the carrot drink, as some ladies next to me suggested it. Not my drink. Tastes like carrot and beer flavored soda. The servers were also short and not very friendly. Almost seemed irritated.
In size? Like,
Yeah, right. Very
Exactly,
limited seating, and it was packed with hipsters. Whoa, a triple hipster.
Triple
All
hipster.
right.
You got
I think we
the.
get
I
the
feel like that guy
triple
got
Tripster.
bugged by Bon Iver or something.
Yeah.
Really
So
hated
why?
it.
Actually, it's pronounced Bon Iver. Okay.
Why do you guys just
with it.
appeal so hard to hipsters?
I know,
Is it built into the
jeez.
marketing? Like, why do you just keep attracting them there?
Yep. It's a funny mix of, as we'll get into more of these. We love the dichotomy of we'll have one review and then a review that's the exact opposite of it, of back to where you can't.
God,
They'll be like,
I love all the hipsters.
Hipster
I love
party.
this many
Too
people
many bros.
no, it'll be
with
it'll
trust
be a
funds
complaint.
pretending they're poor.
Right, because it's either a hipster one or a complaint of there's too many regular folk in there, or what are all the old people doing here, and which is in the middle of the day or something, or there was a
All these
baby
beer
in here.
drinkers doing here.
And you're like, all right, wait, yeah, why are there so much beer here?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, we do get complaints about that we only have beer.
Yeah,
Which
of
is always
course.
a
Yeah.
funny one.
Yeah.
Where we're like, we are a brewery.
Yeah.
We're not actually a bar.
We're not a full bar. We
I
don't.
mean, the good news is it's gone way better. Remember, I said I worked at Windcoop, and even that was almost 10 years ago. The amount, and even still dealing with it then, of people just not grasping it. And they either carried Bud or Coors. They were so tired of the conversation of someone like, I don't understand it. Even though they had a beer that would be on that equivalent level.
Totally.
They had that
The
in
brand
bottles.
loyalty.
They literally carried it because at the time was just like, it's not worth the fight. That has gotten way better. So
Doesn't Wine Coop have like hard alcohol though? Because they
yeah,
have like
they're a brew pub license, so they can carry booze.
yeah.
Yeah. A lot of these reviews, you wind up at the intersection of poor taste and narcissism. And yeah, because people just wind up complaining
That's a
about
pretty good
things.
way of putting it.
Yeah, it's so irrational. There's no really great reason, but they still feel like they still feel so self-important that the world needs to know.
Right.
This is how they feel.
Yeah.
You got one for me?
I do.
Yeah.
Tristan, I'll have you read this one.
This one's about you personally.
It is.
That's
Actually,
the way I like it.
You didn't find any about the comedy shows, did you?
Oh yeah, I bet.
I know one about the
That
comedy
Kobo
shows.
really looks
Real-
like a lady.
Real piece of shit.
What's up with that mustache, dude? Hell yeah.
Some crackers.
He'll be on the next released episode that we're doing.
Nice.
So you can check out Matt Kobos.
All right. This one comes from someone who doesn't recommend Ratio, but gave it 3 stars.
Whoa,
Great atmosphere. Opening bad was awesome. I think they meant band. Left after David Nail's third song, who I love, but you literally couldn't understand a word he was saying because the music took over the vocals. So disappointed. And apparently that reflects on our beer.
Yeah, exactly.
It
Yep.
reflects on you as a business,
Yes.
every decision that you've ever made.
I'm so disappointed that this brewery was nice enough to bring in one of my favorite musicians.
yeah.
And I like
Like,
that he was basically
his guitar
critiquing
was
on
too
not being
loud.
able to understand what was happening when we couldn't really understand his review.
Yeah, right.
Took the
Yeah.
time to type that.
Sorry,
out.
I can't understand the vocals, but you typed this out and it doesn't make any sense.
But the beer was great, so yeah, 3 stars.
You know what?
Yeah,
I'll
open it.
give them a fair enough. They at least give us 3 stars.
Yeah.
It was a confused review. I'll give it that.
So I thought this one was interestingly specific. So if you want to read the
yes.
top one, and just you can read the name as well.
Okay, 1 star. Wait, we are reading names
yeah,
of
read the names.
folks?
They
Yeah,
put it on
okay.
the internet.
Yeah, that's true. Emilio Ortiz. Worst treatment in 5 years. If you're in college, this establishment will suffice. Otherwise, there are many other breweries that offer a quality experience.
So my thought is he just graduated and
Yes.
like with a 5-year degree, and so he's like, "This is the worst it's been in 5. I'm an adult now.
I'm an adult. You know what? This is the guy who says,
that's great.
when they ask for his ID, he's like, I left it in my other sport coat.
If you're pursuing a higher education, this is the place for
this is
you.
the place. I mean, if you're in college, it's fine.
If you're a trade worker, not the spot.
Why don't you graduate and go to Tivoli?
Yeah, you dumb idiot.
All right, this one really gets me good, having worked in the service industry myself. This one I think really nails home a problem with people in society rather than any problem with Ratio Beerworks. So Tristan, enjoy reading this one.
All right. Let's see here. Wait, is it the 3 stars one?
Yeah.
Okay. Another
3
gosh.
stars.
Not recommended.
1 star.
3 stars.
All right. Why is it that you only service beer and have to create lines?
Service.
I work at a full service bar and can service 6 drinks for numerous different people. Plus, you only serve beer with 5 bartenders. This should not be this hard. At least the beer was good.
Hey.
At least the beer was good.
Somebody broke a record for how many times you can use surface in one.
Yes, the service.
Yeah, that's like that,
And the ellipses was very overused.
that's just someone bragging about their service industry job.
Yeah,
like, listen, I am better at
They're
this
so
than
good at slinging
everybody
drinks.
else.
Listen, I got a job.
mojito like nobody's business.
I'm servicing 4 people in the tap room and 2 people in the alley right now.
I am literally juggling old fashions while I'm serving beers at the same time.
While I'm doing this review.
Yeah, and I play in a band.
Funny thing is, she now works for us. No, I'm kidding.
After that
She
glowing
was
review,
so
we were like,
good.
"Wow, this person's talented.
Yeah.
We need to hire them."
She's like, you can get rid of the other 4 bartenders. I got it. I got this
She's
shit.
actually a robot.
So circling back around to job experiences, there's usually a job that somebody has that pushes them into the beer industry because they just need something else, but doesn't have to be the one that was right before this. Can you remember your worst job that you had? It might even be the one that you had right before you got into the beer biz.
Wait, or if
and
Tristan
also-
says, it's the job I have right now.
Yeah. Gotta work with this asshole.
Yeah.
But also, have you been fired before? Because I feel like that's an important part.
Yeah, I've been fired before, but so actually, I think this is the perfect tie-in.
Good.
So I was hired to do marketing for a very well-known ski industry. I don't even like a ski company. Yeah,
Say it.
Sure.
Yeah, Vail, I was. I ran the blog for Vail Resorts, even though during my interview I disclosed I had never skied before in my life.
And then some mom with too much
And
time
they're like-
on her hands took it over.
You
Yeah.
need to run a blog.
Yeah, well, apparently you do. But no, I was transparent in the fact that I never skied before, and they ended up firing me because I didn't understand the lingo and ski culture.
You don't shred the
enough.
gnar, bud?
And I was like, you know what?
Yeah, like stock investments.
makes sense.
Portfolio. I mean, you're in Vail for fuck's sake. Yeah. It's different. It's a different.
Wait, so was
ski
that
lingo
also
up
your
there.
worst job?
Probably because I had no idea what I was doing.
Too much pal for Narnar Binks over here. Okay.
I've never been fired from a job.
Surprising.
But I have
Very
had,
surprising.
yeah, I've had lots of
jobs.
random jobs. Well, a lot because sometimes with touring, I probably had. It's like you would tour for 3 months, and then it's like, hey, I've got 2 months off. So that's where
Totally.
like Cirque du Soleil and all that come in.
Well, you work
We
at
won't
Cirque
go
du
into
Soleil?
that. We won't go into that.
No, you have to
Dude,
now.
even as
You
a
brought it.
kid, as maybe my most other bizarre job was making. I worked at an old time mountainy shop making buckshot for shotguns.
Oh, hell yeah.
I literally was pouring like lead, making the buckshot shots for like old timey shotguns.
You're also a gymnast.
And so, yeah,
Instructor.
Yeah, let's go back to the Cirque du Soleil.
Oh yeah, well
Did the buckshot and the Cirque du Soleil intersect at
No,
any point?
there was at least 20 years between those two.
No, I just mean they were like, "Hey guys, I got a bunch of buckshot. Let's get crazy."
Got a
I'm
bunch of
gymnast."
buckshot. You got some tigers here.
That's
Let's
actually
see.
how he got hired. Is his resume listed buckshot
buckshot creator.
creator?
If you ever start your own podcast, it should be called Buckshot and Beer.
Yes.
I will. I saw this before. It was probably my least favorite job, and it was short. And this was maybe post college, before saying like maybe I should actually get a job and should I tour or not. And I took a job out of Boulder. There's a lot of weird magazines that run out of Boulder. If no one knows that.
Sure. Yeah.
They run all.
There's
the,
a
like,
lot of weird
subscriptions.
everything
There's a
up
weird,
there.
yeah.
Like Hustler or what?
No. All the like random, just Good Housekeeping, whatever. Everything runs out of Boulder to the subscriptions. Some weird thing there. Anyways, this is how old I am, but Princess Di had just died in a car wreck.
Nice. That was a good pun.
There we go.
Princess had just
Died.
died.
I mean, by the way, very relevant topic because Harry and Meghan are leaving.
Tristan can't
Leaving the
can't
crown.
handle it. He's like,
Marketing manager is
Let's
very
talk
uncomfortable
now.
right
Let's talk
now.
Taylor Swift
Tristan's
here.
like, I used to
Let's get
be.
real.
Let's get real.
Tristan's like, I used to be in the
So
paparazzi.
the English monarchy. Let's get real with this. So, anyways, I got this job. It was a temp job, and it was literally for. I think it was People magazine, but it was their commemorative Princess Di edition. And my whole job for this, it was as you can read. If you guys, I don't know if you're.
Yeah, we were live.
It was a national or international phenomenon.
global
I mean, I think that, honestly, I've been telling people, I think that Kobe Bryant's death is the biggest death since Princess Diana.
Since Princess Di.
Yeah.
I just
Both of
saw
my-
a thing about how much it'll cost when the Queen dies.
Yeah.
And they said the most expensive funeral and coverage since then was Princess Di when she died.
Sure.
Both my Princess Di and Kobe Beanie Babies have skyrocketed in price.
Oh yeah. So anyways, okay, I'll finish this up. So I was there selling the commemorative Princess Di, like People, whatever anniversary edition. I was like, no one's buying this. Meanwhile, everyone's buying it from around the world.
Yeah, flying off the shelves.
And
So, wait, what do you mean you were selling it?
we were the phone.
He's got like a
He's
trench.
on the
He's got a
corners.
trench coat.
Princess Di papers.
Yeah,
here.
no, we're
Get your die
it was
here.
phone service. Something they do all the processing through Boulder, and you would get in and you would just have to take these orders. This was like the internet was there, but apparently this was on that edge of way more phone sales. So a lot of hey, you want to order it? Do you want to get the pin with it or whatever? We weren't directly doing any sales, which was nice. It was a lot of old ladies calling in and telling us, and it would be hilarious, them telling their story of why they connected with Princess Di.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You're serving
I was-
as a therapist.
I was in a limo
we were like
in
a therapist.
1982.
And but we had these pressures of like, don't stay on the phone. They had these like set times for longer, whenever. But why it was bad, the thing is, you thought, oh, you take some calls, take some orders all day. It was like this machine, like I was a hamster on a wheel. You would get in every day, and it was such a massive phenomenon. It would show you your queue in your like phone line, and you'd sit down and it would just never go away. And you would just sit for like 6 hours at a time taking this.
You're just like seducing these old ladies over the phone. They're
But
like, I'm so sad.
Seducing
You
them,
sound
but meanwhile,
so handsome.
and I do like to talk to people, it'd be like a beeper going off of too much time on this call, like wrap it up.
This
it
is
was like
fantastic.
having, you guys are in comedy, it was getting the light.
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
time's up at
Yeah.
every time. Like, oh
Boy.
God. Okay,
This is
give me
truly
credit card.
incredible
fair,
because I've
You
heard,
didn't even know that.
This is the
I
first
also
time I've
called
heard
in on
this
that
magazine
Literally,
line.
I can count
Yeah.
probably like 25 jobs that I've heard of him talk about,
Yep.
and this is the first
the
time I'm
first
hearing
one.
about
Good
this.
job.
Perfect. Well, you
To
heard
be
it here
fair,
first.
anytime I talk about Princess Diana on stage, I get the light too. So
Yeah, they're like immediately
right
the
away,
light
they're
goes
like,
on.
Wrap it up.
we got other people to get
Yeah.
up. Oh.
So I was actually curious because you guys are so music influenced and counterculture influenced. Is there a non-brewery dream collaboration that you would love to work on somebody with, and what would the beer be?
Wait, with someone not
Like an
not
artist,
another
like
brewery?
a musician or
Oh,
an
yeah, yeah,
athlete or whatever.
Any brand,
Justin
any company.
Bieber
I was gonna-
for Jason.
And what would you make? What would you make with the Beebs?
No, this is totally
Oh
Jason.
yeah, no. What would you make? Yeah, or Taylor Swift.
Besides
Taylor
love,
Swift.
what would you
Taylor
make with the
Taylor
Beebs?
Swift would probably be
Yeah.
our universal
That would
one.
be our
yeah.
universal.
That'd be
We
amazing.
do have some Taylor Swift Fridays going on.
Yeah, every
what would
Friday.
we make with Taylor Swift though? Some like cotton candy beer.
Yeah. I don't know. Bad Blood. I feel like if you
Oh, a blood orange.
Yeah.
A
You
little
know,
blood
we
orange
did.
pale.
We had a beer. We actually released once in a while called the Espacio Blanco, the Spanish for blank space, which is one of Taylor Swift's greatest songs.
One of the
ever
best.
written. And
Well, we
it's
celebrate her
actually
entire
her
Her entire
catalog,
portfolio.
yeah.
Her entire.
I celebrate her entire catalog. Even on our mural, so Blaine Fontana, very famous LA and Portland-based artist. There's a little bit of a Taylor Swift tie-in out there
Yeah.
with Espacio Blanca.
Yeah, we'll leave it up to our fans to come check it out
Oh.
and discover on their own.
All right, Taylor. When you listen to this, just start thinking
Yeah.
about what beer you want to make with the guys.
I was thinking though, for just pure fun.
Bahamian.
Well, yeah. Oh, jeez. No, I would say like the Baja. I always
Baja
my
Man,
little fun is putting
yeah.
on Who Let the Dogs
Put
Out.
dogs
if there's
in that
ever
beer,
a
baby.
jukebox, I'll put that on.
Oh boy.
It's amazingly amazing after all these years. Maybe Seth Rogen, I think, would be funny. I keep seeing him on my Netflix because he keeps doing these cooking shows.
Yeah.
Which I don't know that he has any knowledge of cooking.
Yeah,
Probably not.
right.
And I think his entire point of being there is his funny laugh throughout the whole episode,
Yes.
which feels like that would be pretty fun.
I've
It
seen
just
a
makes you
couple
feel
of
it
those.
would
good.
just
It's
be
nice to
fun.
be. It's nice to be
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Doing Seth
what would you-
Rogen
so
laughing.
wait, what
Maybe
would you-
Elon Musk too, by the way, because the dude's crazy.
Yeah.
He's our
All right, so
like
you got
Henry
Seth
Ford.
Rogen and Elon Musk on the brew deck. What are you making with both of those
Oh
guys?
wow.
Yo, no, some crazy ass. Use some crazy ass like Tesla
I
engine
feel like with
shit.
Seth Rogen,
to
it'd
it.
have to be like a THC infused.
Well, I know. Yeah, there'd be some dank hops or whatever, right? Yeah, like
You guys haven't experimented with that at all, have you?
No.
With doing
with dank
like,
hops.
dank hops, bro.
Oh, THC or CBD.
Yeah.
No, yeah, we haven't. No, what's funny, was the big Keith Via out of
Yeah,
Blue
Syria.
Moon. Yep. Breaking off of launching Blue Moon those many years ago and then doing it. But I don't know. There's a lot of that. Like I really do I don't even mind people pushing the limits and trying new things. But there is an element of like, is it just for the sake of pushing it? Does everything need to actually cross over? If you like weed or if you like CBD, do you have to put it into your maple syrup, for example? By the way, that was my most Boulder moment ever.
Yes,
So,
actually.
I was at the Boulder Beer Fest thing, and it literally was fucking maple syrup with CBD. And one of our investors is kind of in an extraction, or helped in with some CBD, but from beer. And even he was like, that's peak Boulder, dude.
Yeah, that
Like,
sure is.
He's like, CBD doesn't even taste good. At the level you need it, and this is a CBD advocate, and he's like, it doesn't even taste that good. Why would you put it on your waffles? Like at that
probably
point, why
mask
don't
it
you
a
just take
bunch.
them separately?
Yeah.
I
Like just
mean,
take an edible
Yeah,
and eat some
or
pancakes.
right. Well, yeah, edible is a whole different thing. But
Well, I
if
just
we're,
meant
if we're
like
just talking
even a
CBD,
CBD
right.
edible, like a CBD gummy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I do find that while I love exploring the boundaries and what matches together, like, for example, maybe I think we have a coffee stout coming up.
Yeah. Do you want some coffee porter?
Yeah, the coffee porter.
Yeah.
That I think there's some things that you don't normally go together that maybe contrast and do well together. Sometimes, hey, go ahead and try it, but sometimes maybe they are separate. And I would say, and maybe I'm a old fogey, is maybe you have your weed separate from your beer.
Yeah, no, totally.
In other words, I think they can both be phenomenal, but maybe they don't need to be combined.
They don't need a match. Yeah, totally.
That's my gut on it.
I feel like the theme for this podcast is CBD infused syrup on waffles with Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
100%.
That's the move. But not in beer. That's not necessary at all.
Yeah, it's funny to me too, because like I remember probably about 8 years ago visiting one of the early breweries in Lexington, and they were already making THC infused beer like under the radar.
Yeah.
And it's like now people are trying to turn it into this mainstream thing. I'm like, no, this is what good old boys cook up, kind of like moonshine in their garage.
Or
like,
if you're gonna mix it, let's just get real and go back to Red Bull and vodka.
And also
Yeah.
CBD,
Right.
CBD
Yeah.
is
you don't
one of
need to
those
make a
things-
Red Bull vodka. You take Red Bull and vodka and you pound them together.
Yeah.
fisting.
Oh, boy.
Well, CBD is also one of those things that has just been everybody's doing it now. It's like you can find it at gas stations. You're like, I don't know if I necessarily need to
Oh, yeah.
get that.
Yep.
Yeah,
By
my
the
buddy's
horny-
mom out in Michigan like swears by CBD. I'm like, all right. That's
Well-
what's
Well, I mean, I love
different.
CBD, but it's just like at a certain point now, are you just? It's
In
got to be an
maple syrup?
inferior. Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Duh. It's got to be an inferior product to a certain point if you can sell it wherever. So you still have to worry about where it's coming from. If I can buy my horny goat weed right next to my
Yeah.
CBD, I'm just gonna get the horny goat weed. I think.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, CBD.
Hell
Hell
Let's do
yeah.
this.
Oh, yeah.
Let's chill out.
You guys could name a beer CBD. Well, I think that's going to do it for today's episode.
Well, I do want to real quick plug
Oh
our
yeah,
anniversary.
yeah.
Can we
Of
do
course.
some
Sorry.
plugs?
sorry,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
what
yeah.
I was
Give a shout out to my boys.
So
This
you guys,
weekend. This weekend.
As you had alluded to, this is your 5th anniversary, which you guys are obviously very excited and proud of.
Joyce
Yes,
Manor.
it's divisible by 5, so that makes it important.
Man.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us about the weekend's worth of festivities, what you got going on, special beer releases, all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a pretty big weekend lined up, including a lot of different aspects that make us truly who we are as Ratio. And so starting out next Wednesday, we've got a killer comedy show.
Yeah. You guys are. The thing is, like, I get to work with this guy while he's here, but you guys are the ones that's bringing him in. So thank you, because
Yeah.
this is he's so fun to work with, and he's
Who is
so
it?
funny.
Santa Claus?
His name is Chris Fairbanks, and
Oh,
he is
yeah.
absolutely one of the fucking best.
He's amazing.
so funny. And so, yeah, that's an absolute, like, don't miss show for sure.
So we're super excited about that. Lining up, comedy has been. I think we were one of the first breweries to start a regular.
You guys have
comedy
been an
show.
integral part of the Denver comedy and beer scene for as long as I know of.
I believe you were second only to myself over at Gene Reaction.
Oh, hell yeah. Gene Reaction, you were doing it over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
One up and son of
That's
a
why I
bitch.
said one of.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. Yeah.
No,
but
but
you
you guys
guys
didn't wanna
honestly,
commit.
like, you can catch shows here at Ratio every Wednesday.
Yeah, you
and
guys are
they're
weekly.
always top notch.
Yeah. Well, we're super excited about that. And then Thursday, February 13th is when we release King of Carrot Flowers in
It's
cans. 12
so
ounce
good.
cans. They'll be available in 6-packs to go. We'll also have it on draft in the tap room. But we're really excited. Like Jason said, we're not going into canning full time, but we did want to do something a little bit special for our 5th anniversary.
How many are you going to shotgun on your anniversary?
Like 20 of them, I don't know. But yeah, no,
That carrot
people can
juice
come in and grab those cans to take back, and I know it's become kind of a fan favorite, so we're excited to share something a little bit
It's
special.
delicious. It's so good.
And then so Friday is when we really kind of kick off our anniversary weekend in a big way. We've got 2 headliners to start out the night with Kali Masi and Make War. And we're also really excited about our opener, Major Sports, which features one of our employees.
Yeah, Chip. I used to work with Chip too.
Oh, you did?
I worked with Chip over at Illegal Pete's. Chip's
no way.
great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
you got Chip and then Maddie from High Dive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've been on a little bit of a hiatus lately, so it'll be cool to get them back in.
little
the swing of
reunion.
things.
Yeah, little reunion show if you haven't seen him in a while.
Totally. And then on Saturday, we'll be releasing a little bit of a special beer. So Dear You is our kind of most famous flagship beer. It's a French Saison, but we're doing a barrel fermented wild version of Dear You French Saison. So you'll get a bit of little funk on it from the Brett strain that we used. Really, really effervescent beer, really great, and not overpowering in terms of like the funk or the sour notes on it. But that'll be on draft when we open at noon. And then the big kind of headlining show that night is, as you all alluded to, Joyce Manor, who we flew in for a big show that night. They'll be opened by Junior Drag, which is a tremendous rising kind of punk band here in Denver. And then we're really, excited to have Joyce Manor. They were kind enough to join us for two days of music. They'll be back on Sunday morning for kind of an encore brunch. And that'll be taking place in the tap room. It'll be a ticket. That's our only ticketed event of the weekend. Okay. Everything else is free to attend. No tickets required.
Yeah,
That's
pay
so
up,
awesome.
you sons of bitches.
Yeah.
The rest of it's free.
Though
Yeah,
we
that's so
do
cool.
recommend people get there early on Saturday. We're going to be wristbanding people as early as noon for that Joyce Manor show. But
they normally play the Summit, and they're going to go play
like
150
Yeah.
is what we're
It's
going
a
to
tight
fill
space.
out.
It's an awesome space.
That'll
but
fill
it
out
is
real
tight,
quick.
so-
Joyce Manor's a great get.
But
Sure.
if you don't want to fight the crowds, then Sunday morning, like I mentioned, there's going to be a Joyce Manor encore brunch. It's a full performance, and they're fully plugged in. But we're also going to have Barcelona, our neighbors, creating a huge spread of breakfast brunch items. Novo Coffee is going to provide coffee, and then Bloody Beers from The Real Dill, and of course Ratio Beer as well. So tickets are available online on our website, on our Facebook pages, on our social channels. You can find all of that information there. Or if you want to go to bit.ly/encore brunch, you can grab tickets for $40.
Nice. That's so awesome. Hell
Wait,
yeah.
we have to do one more plug for after anniversary, especially because of you
ACH.
guys.
Yeah,
ACH.
that's right.
So the amazing crossover of music and comedy.
Yeah.
ACH we just were able to announce, which if you guys saw,
Adam Caden Holland.
Adam
Yeah,
Caden
that's
Holland,
Holland, local guy.
is going to release his Comedy Central special on vinyl through Saddle
Creek.
Records.
So amazing. That's so
amazing.
fucking amazing.
One of our favorite record labels of all time, as well as Adam's. Pretty exciting. It's their first comedy album they've ever going to
That's
release.
so rad.
That is really exciting.
Joining,
And Adam is one of the best in the country, and it's so great to have him here locally, not only to perform, but just kind of be a stalwart of like Denver comedy and just the culture here.
Yeah.
It is pretty phenomenal. And one of the things when even talking to him is, Saddle Creek, some of these massive bands like Bright Eyes coming out of
Cursive.
there, of that they stayed out of Omaha, Nebraska. Yeah. And one of the things, Adam's such a Denver guy, and he said, I love it. It's an inspiration to me of like, hey, you can move to New York or LA. And he's made a very active choice of, I want to live in Denver.
Here, yes.
And that really fits with that kind of Saddle Creek mentality. So we're super pumped to that crossover. So we're going to be doing his release show for that vinyl on February 21st, which is a Friday night, which is a free show too.
Nice.
Same way, we'll probably have to limit, so get there early if you want an actual seat.
Yeah, that's gonna go.
And
real
he will
fast.
have copies of his vinyl available for sale that night.
Yes,
So
we're going to do some special release of the vinyl that night. We're also going to do spinning some Saddle Creek records, just the crossover because it's so
that's
great.
fun. Yeah, that's
with
real
the
fun.
crossover with us and the brewery and our inspirations, and doing some giveaways of different Saddle Creek artists throughout the time.
I've always called Adam the ugly organ, but don't tell him I said that.
Yeah, he definitely won't listen. to this.
Great, yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for being on. We had a great time. Korey, anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Honestly, nothing to plug, but truly an honor to be here with you guys. And
Thank you
just
guys so
since we started talking about doing the podcast, we've been talking about the people we want to work with that embody not only what we're doing with Rotating Tap Comedy, but just the spirit of Denver that support the comedy scene, the music scene, the art scene, and make amazing beer. And you guys encapsulate all
you guys
of
are the
that.
best.
So,
Awesome.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
hopefully we
Appreciate
can
it.
have you guys doing a live show at Ratio if that hard ass Matt Kobos will
Yeah.
allow it to happen.
He's too metal for us, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, we might have to have him chug some beers in order to get him on that show, which he's pretty good.
Oh,
at.
yeah.
Which actually, no, he did okay at. Yeah.
Yeah, he's no Josh Gilman, but
He's more of a butt chugger, but yeah.
nice. Well, thank you guys so
And
much.
on that note.
Thanks for listening to Rotating Tap Comedy Podcast. Okay, thanks. Bye.